Alrighty, hello. So today we are going to be talking about the sacral chakra, that beautiful orange color. If you are familiar with the colors of the different chakras, I don't know if I said that for the root chakra being red, and now the orange sacral chakra. So today I do have notes that I will be referencing. So if you see me looking down, that is why. All of this kind of came flooding into me last week, and I was feeling super under the weather. I had a really bad cold, and then I had a really not fun sinus infection, and I couldn't even breathe out of my nose, and I sounded awful, and I didn't feel like I had good energy. And so I just kind of jotted everything down as it came to me, and I did not do the video in the moment, which feels best. But I at least wrote it all down to reference for today. So today we're going to be talking about, like we did with the root chakra, we're going to talk about those kind of like heavy feelings associated with a blocked sacral chakra, and the emotions that we can release the heaviness, and then the emotions that we can call in, those lighter feel-good emotions that we can call into the sacral chakra, and what those look like, and some ideas about those. And I might say this again later, but even just keeping in mind with some of this stuff as you're releasing and filling in, sometimes these are new emotions that we're experiencing, or sometimes they're emotions that have, been repressed for a long period of time, due to like depression or, whatever else, so especially with sacral chakra depression. So sometimes as we're trying to call in those lighter emotions, and I'll talk about like really trying to sit in the feelings and what does it feel like. Sometimes we don't know, right? Sometimes we've never felt those emotions before. Sometimes they're completely new to us, or sometimes they've been repressed for so long that we don't remember what it feels like to feel those emotions. So sometimes you're faking it till you feel it. You really are. And it does eventually start to click, and it does start to feel more natural. But sometimes we're just like honestly faking it until we feel it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the sacral chakra, and when it's imbalanced, when we are full of some of those heavier emotions, some of the heavier emotions that we might be experiencing could look like depression, feeling numb, kind of like a detachment from life, feeling insecure, feeling guilty, feeling shame. And I'll kind of circle back around to these. It could be, just like an emotional instability with a lot of like highs and lows, and just really not feeling stable. Sometimes there could be like creativity blocks, like our creative juices are just not flowing. And a lot of times low libido. Sacral chakra really associated with like pleasure and desire and all that stuff that we'll get to. So a lot of times there's a very low libido, just kind of feeling like numb, numbness, depression. I know for me, after my divorce, that during that period, like experiencing a lot of grief it'll just weigh this one down. Where we really don't have joy in life. We really do feel like depressed and numb. And I remember telling my friend, as I was navigating my divorce, I was like, I feel like just super numb, like a walking zombie. She's like, well, yeah, you're grieving. And I was like, I'm grieving? And she's like, yeah, you're grieving the loss of a relationship, the loss of what you thought that life was gonna be like. Like, it's somebody that was a huge part of your life on a daily basis. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was grieving. And I remember telling my mom, and this is where kind of like the shame and guilt, stuff like that can come in. And I remember telling my mom, that I was having a very hard time and that I was just grieving. And my mom was like, well, you can't grieve somebody that's still alive. I was like, okay, well, just got shot down there, you know? And I did. I felt kind of like ashamed, guilty for feeling that way. And and it was obviously like she just doesn't understand. She just does not understand that concept. It's not something that she's ever experienced. So she didn't understand that grief could look like the loss of a relationship, the loss of a house, like with moving, the loss of a job with changing jobs. Like, it doesn't have to be just a physical loss, you know, like grief can expand so much beyond that. And we do experience a lot of grief that can really like make our sacral chakra feel very depressed, very numb. It's a very like just not even like sad sometimes, like sometimes it just feels numb. Um, and so some of the other feelings that I mentioned are like guilt and shame. And again, I remember trying not to get ADD here. I remember when I was experiencing breast implant illness. For those of you that don't know, I had breast implants for 10.5 years. And in October of 2020, started 2020, started experiencing breast implant illness, broke out in a full body rash. My organs were shutting down. I was losing hair. My breath smelled awful. Like the breast implants were literally killing me. And I did not understand what was going on at the time. And I remember I had like basically psoriasis throughout my whole body, all over my arms, my legs, really, really bad on my arms, like absolutely horrible. And I remember I was still working at the time. Like work did give me a sense of purpose. It gave me a sense to like keep going, right? And I love what I do. And I was doing mobile visits at the time, and the psoriasis had spread down to my hands. And I remember when it had spread down to my hands, my mom's reaction to seeing it on my hands. And she was like, "How do you work like that?" And in my head, I was like, oh, she's concerned about how I'm working because it's so painful. Like, how do I still work on clients because it's so painful? Because she knows I use my hands for work. And she goes, people actually let you touch them looking like that? Like, do you wear gloves? And I was like, oh, like immediate like shame and guilt and just, oh, it felt so awful. And I was like, oh, no wonder. And in the beginning, I tried to keep it hidden when I started breaking out in the rash. And I was like, oh, no wonder I tried to keep it hidden. Like, I felt ashamed for the way that I looked instead of being concerned about what was happening to me. So, you know, a lot of shame and guilt's passed down through generations. Like, they just don't know, they don't understand, they have their own conditioning, and it gets passed down to us. And now we're the ones who can come in and feel those feelings and help release some of these feelings and heal for the next generation, the generations to come. And my notes disappeared. And the question is, where did these get downloaded to? So, you know, like now we're the ones who can be strong enough to come in and start healing this stuff and feeling these feelings. And so a lot of times when you're going through this healing process, you need to sit in those feels and feel those feelings in order to release them. We can't heal what we can't feel. So sitting in those feelings of grief, in those feelings of guilt, in those feelings of shame, depression, like allowing yourself to really just sit in like how crappy it feels. You can go back and do that meditation too, that guided myofascial unwinding to help release some of those issues from your tissues. And then we have that space that's cleared out to then call in those lighter emotions. If we're trying to like force feed those lighter emotions when we're already so bogged down with the heavy stuff, you really don't have room for it. So a lot of times this requires sitting in those really heavy feels before when releasing it, before we can fill it up with those lighter emotions. And especially there's so much shame and guilt around sex and pleasure and doing what feels good and what does feel good. And especially around sex, right? Like for so many of us, for so many generations, it was like my parents didn't even have any sort of a sex talk with me. None. Zero, zilch. You know, let alone be like, well, what feels good to you? How do you like to be touched? What are you looking for? What brings you pleasure? So, you know, that is something that sometimes we have to learn how to navigate on our own. So yeah, sometimes we can have low libido, just feel really like not interested in connecting to that. So things that we could do, let's start talking about, so that's kind of like the heavier stuff, the stuff that we're looking to release. And now we can talk about ways to fill up our sacral chakra through pleasure, through joy, through desire, through creativity. And a lot of times the stuff, you know, when we get to it, we'll get to like pleasure and desire, but it doesn't even have to be sexual, right? Like sacral chakra is also associated with sexual, but we can also talk about things that bring us pleasure and joy that aren't. So things that bring you pleasure and joy. This is what we want to start to feel, start to tap into. So it could be something as, you know, simple like going for a walk out in nature, going for a hike, feeling the sunshine, like really feeling it like nourish you as you're outside, feeling the warmth of that sunshine on your face, on your chest, on your shoulders, like just feeling it nourish you and feeling that joy that it brings to you and really feeling that in your body. Or getting out in water or near water. And if you can't, like even just like soaking in a nice hot bath, like how good it feels to just be enveloped by that warm, nourishing water and how good it feels to connect. And you know, sometimes when we're experiencing depression, we may not have a lot of energy to like go for a walk, go for a hike. You know, like if you have a dog, taking your dog can feel good because then you see the joy that your dog experiences while you're walking them, right? But if that even feels like too much, like if you're really battling like a deep depression, like even just going outside on your back patio and just, you know, feeling the sunshine on you for 5 minutes, or, you know, watching the rain come down if you're in a rainy place. I'm blessed to live in Arizona, which I came out here because of the sunshine, because it is like bright blue skies and sunshine. And that to me brings me so much joy that now when it does rain, I moved here from Illinois and it's gray and cloudy. And I mean, yeah, we get sun, but also like hot and humid and ugh, I was not a fan of the weather in Illinois. Definitely did not bring me joy to live in Illinois. Like flat lands, nowhere to like, barely anywhere to get out in nature. There was like one little like forest preserve not too far from me. But definitely like out here for me, like the ability to get out in the Superstition Mountains and like get out and like just kind of feel nature all around me feels really good. But yeah, it could look like even just getting outside on your back patio for like 5 minutes. And like I said, sometimes you have to fake it till you feel it. And other things like what brings you joy? Is it engaging in a deep conversation with a friend or indulging in like a healthy, yummy, savory meal? Putting on some music and jamming out, dancing around, or just putting on some really chill music and like laying back and just really soaking it all in. Or going for a walk, but maybe some of you guys like to run and really like feel that like physical exertion, and that really brings you a lot of joy. Or getting a really good like heavy workout in maybe makes you just feel so satisfied. Or maybe it's like lighter movement, like stretching and yoga or yoga nidra, meditation, gardening, getting your hands in the dirt and cultivating and nurturing your plants. And then like really like trying to feel this like in your body. Like to me, it just feels like a nice warm hug, like all the way around my arms and chest. And like I said, like feeling the warmth of the sunshine or the cold ground underneath of your feet. And you know, like sometimes we're not sure, right? What brings us joy? What brings us pleasure? So if you're not sure, take a dance lesson. Take an intro to rock climbing. Make yourself a romantic meal with candlelight. Take music lessons. Like try different things and see, like, do I like this? Like, does this make me feel good? Does this tap into my creativity? That's another huge one with the sacral chakra, is feeling creative. Which could be something like playing sports. Oh yeah, see, some of the other things, creativity, but joy. Playing sports, dancing, either socially or solo. Do you feel nourished and taken care of through physical touch? And if you don't have somebody to give you physical touch, maybe giving yourself like a nice big hug could feel really good. Or snuggling up with your dog on the couch, or if you don't have a dog or kids to snuggle with, putting some pillows behind you and like putting a nice blanket over you and snuggling up as if you're snuggling with somebody else, and just like, oh, like feeling so wrapped up in that warm touch. Getting a massage. A massage is such a great way, right, for some self-care and physical touch. And then being able to express what feels good as far as physical touch. Like for me, just even sometimes I'll just like sit there and trace my fingertips like over my arms. Like it gives me kind of a little goosebump feeling. I love that like light touch. It's like doing it for myself. You know, if I'm not able to go get a massage or whatever, just bring yourself a little bit of joy. Creativity, painting. And if you want, like, go do one of those like sip and paint classes. If you don't drink, just go do like the painting portion. You know, buying yourself some paints and some paper or canvas and something at home. Taking jewelry making lessons, taking music lessons, or maybe you already know how to do jewelry, or like creativity, like gardening, like I mentioned. Like really tapping into your creative side and what brings that out in you. And then what makes you feel sensual. And this was one of those like naughty little ones, right? That like we don't like, definitely was not allowed to be talked about in my family. But what makes you feel sensual? Like the little light touches on my face feel so good. Running my fingers through my hair, putting on sexy lingerie and dancing for yourself in front of the mirror, or doing a sensual dance as if for a partner. And yeah, sometimes this stuff might feel super uncomfortable, right? So sometimes you really are just like having to sit in a little bit of discomfort before you can tap into like the sensual aspect. And that's where the faking it till you feel it comes in. Like I said, like you could make yourself a nice candlelit dinner and just kind of romance yourself, turn on some music as if you're having like a nice romantic meal. Applying lotion or oil slowly and centrally to your legs, taking your time, really tracing your fingers over every inch of your legs. And then like tapping into, how do you enjoy being touched from a sensual aspect? And if you're not sure, experiment and see what feels good to you. And we kind of talked about a little bit with the self-care stuff. Like, you know, we often think of the self-care with like a spa day, a massage, you know, and that can absolutely be self-care. And it can be something as simple as just taking a nice hot bath. You know, in it could be getting a facial, getting your hair and nails done, or simply, yeah, or drinking a nice hot mug of tea or coffee, participating in some gentle yoga or stretching. And then we kind of talked about that, like, what is your preference? And sometimes you could feel one way one day and wanting the like nice, slow, stretching yoga. And then other days you might really feel like that high intensity interval training, right? Playing around with it and just seeing like over time what feels good, what does feel good, and faking it sometimes until you need to. Another one associated with the sacral chakra a lot of times is boundary setting. And that one, you know, I feel like I might even go into, now that we're kind of, I've been trying to keep the videos around 20 minutes, and boundary setting is just such a good one for the sacral chakra. So I think I'll do a separate video on that one and we can kind of get into that one. But it doesn't feel good, you know, when we overexert and overgive and, you know, are performing. And we really want to sit back and receive. And so boundary setting is a great one for the sacral chakra. So we'll get into that one a little bit, but just kind of that basic idea behind it. So hopefully this stuff helps you guys. I'm excited to see and hear your progress with everything so far. So definitely reach out and let me know. And you can always refer back to that guided myofascial unwinding video whenever you feel called. It's really good to do in between these videos, like right before you're going into the next video to help release. Or you could do it after listening to this and then doing the myofascial unwinding, so you kind of know what may bubble up for you to release. Or some people like to do the myofascial unwinding video meditation first, and then whatever comes up to release, then they go to that associated chakra. So that is all for the sacral chakra today. Thank you so much. And I am so excited to hear what you guys released and what brings you joy and pleasure and makes you feel creative and sensual and fulfilled. So let me know. I love you guys.